The weight of the day settled on my shoulders like a barbell loaded too heavy. My best trainer called out sick food poisoning, he claimed. But that meant covering his classes, wrestling with a busted treadmill that the repair guy couldn't get to until next week, and enduring a soul-crushing session with the Karen, arguing over her membership contract for half an hour. By the time I finally walked through the door of our house, all I craved was Sarah, a little connection. Just us time. Hey babe, I said, managing a smile. Wanna watch that new show you were talking about? I know it's late, but I could really use some us time. Simple, right? Just a simple ask after a hellish day. She didn't even look up from her damn phone. Scrolling, always scrolling. Her voice was flat, detached. I don't owe you intimacy. The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. It felt like a punch to the gut. The air whooshed out of me, leaving me gasping. Intimacy? Was she serious? I wasn't talking about sex. I just wanted to sit next to her, maybe hold her hand while we watched some stupid show. I was so tired I probably would have passed out anyway. What? I croaked, voice thick with disbelief. What did you say? She finally lifted her eyes, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. Like I was disturbing something sacred. I said, I don't owe you intimacy, Liam. I'm tired of you acting like it's some kind of obligation just because we're married. The room started to spin. Obligation? I spent my days building a business, pouring my heart and soul into creating something real, something for us, and coming home to my wife, wanting to share a quiet moment, was an obligation I was forcing upon her. I stood there, stunned, remembering the conversation I'd had with a client earlier that day. An older guy, probably mid-60s. He'd said, "You're a lucky man, Liam. Own your own business, good shape, supportive wife. You've got it all." I'd nodded, agreeing. I'd felt proud. Lucky. Now I felt like a fool. I didn't argue. There didn't seem to be any point. I just mumbled, "Okay," and walked into the kitchen. I started meal prepping for the next day, going through the motions like a robot. Chicken, rice, broccoli. Fuel for the machine. I could feel her eyes on me, but I didn't turn around. Didn't want to see the cold indifference that had replaced the warmth I used to know. Sleep was a distant dream that night. My mind was a relentless hamster wheel, replaying the conversation, dissecting every word. I kept thinking about the woman Sarah used to be, the woman who brought me lunch at the crummy gym I used to work at, the woman who cheered me on when I told her my dream of opening my own place. Where did that woman go? Now, she treated basic human connection like a favor she was doing me, a huge imposition on her precious time. It wasn't just the words, it was the way she said them. That cold, dismissive tone, like I was a burden. That night, something broke inside me. It wasn't just anger or hurt. It was a sickening realization. The foundations of my marriage were crumbling, and I'd been too blind, too busy to notice. That sentence, "I don't owe you intimacy," it was the hammer that shattered the illusion. And in the ruins, I started to see the truth. A truth I'd been desperately avoiding for far too long. A month later, the words still echoed in my head. I found myself working later at the gym, finding solace in the familiar clang of weights and the energy of the members. It was easier than going home, facing that coldness. Reviewing new membership applications had become one of my routine tasks to keep busy, and one application stood out. Emma, 31, female, physical therapist. She was new to the area, working at the sports medicine clinic that had just opened up. Her fitness goals weren't the usual generic tone up or lose weight. She wrote a detailed paragraph about recovering from a college sports injury, wanting to get back to her competitive shape. Someone who knew her stuff. She'd requested personal training sessions with me. She even specified that she'd checked out our website and liked our approach to functional fitness. Flattering, sure, but I was focused on business. Her first session was scheduled for Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. The early birds. The serious ones? Truth? When Emma walked through the door that first morning, my mind didn't wander into relationship territory. I was all business, analyzing her posture, her gait, her overall fitness level, creating a workout plan tailored to her specific needs. But something was different from the start. The first thing she asked me wasn't about calories or cardio. How long did it take you to turn this place around? I blinked, surprised. Excuse me? She smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached her eyes. I saw the before pictures on your Instagram. That warehouse renovation was impressive. Impressive? Sarah had complained for weeks about the renovation, calling me obsessed, neglecting her. This client was actually interested in the journey, the struggle it took to build this place. During that first session, between sets, Emma peppered me with questions. Business structure, community building, marketing strategies. Not in a nosy way. She seemed genuinely curious. Mentioned she'd helped the PT clinic she used to work at build their social media presence from scratch. Over the next few weeks, Emma became a regular. 3 sessions a week, always on time, always prepared. She'd come in with questions about her form, show me research articles about new training techniques, even pointed out ways we could improve our website's booking system. Meanwhile, things at home were deteriorating. Sarah was glued to her phone, barely acknowledging my presence. When I tried to talk about maybe starting a second location, she'd roll her eyes and mutter something about my obsession. Emma, on the other hand, was bringing me articles about successful gym expansions, sharing stories about her PT clinic's growth. One morning, after a particularly rough night at home, Sarah had spent dinner telling me I needed to get some balance in my life. I was running on fumes. I had clients back to back, forgot to eat. The usual gym owner grind. Emma showed up for her session, took one look at me and said, "You look like you're about to crash." Before I could even respond, she pulled a protein shake from her bag. "Made extra this morning. Figured you might need it. It's got that grass-fed whey protein you mentioned liking. It wasn't anything fancy, just a basic shake, but the thoughtfulness of it hit me hard. When was the last time Sarah had done anything like that? Hell, when was the last time she'd even asked how my day was without following it up with a complaint? Let me be clear. Nothing happened between me and Emma during this time. I'm not that kind of guy. Everything was strictly professional, but it did make me start seeing things differently. Like how Emma would get excited hearing about my plans for the gym's future, while Sarah would dismiss them as my obsession. Or how Emma would notice when I was stressed and offer genuine support, while Sarah would use my stress as ammunition in arguments. The contrast was becoming impossible to ignore. One morning, I was telling Emma about a new training program I was developing for senior clients. She immediately started sharing her PT experience with older patients, offering insights I hadn't even considered. That same evening, I tried telling Sarah about it. She barely looked up from her phone, just mumbled, "That's nice," like I was talking about the weather. I remember sitting in my office one day, looking at paperwork, when the thought hit me, I was more comfortable talking to a client I'd known for a month than I was talking to my wife of 8 years. That's messed up, right? But here's the thing about Emma. She wasn't trying to replace Sarah. She wasn't trying to do anything except be a good client and, eventually, a friend. She'd share ideas about the business, sure, but always kept things professional. If anything, her presence just highlighted how far my marriage had fallen. I started dreading going home even more. Not because I wanted to be around Emma, I was determined to keep things professional, but because every interaction with her reminded me of what a supportive relationship should look like, even just on a basic human level. Those movies where the main character has this moment where all these random things suddenly connect. That's what happened to me. It was a slow build, not like lightning striking. One random Thursday evening, I was doing the gym's monthly finances. Exciting stuff, I know, and Sarah walked in, complaining about how we never go on fancy dates anymore. Mind you, I was literally sitting there with spreadsheets showing how she just dropped $3 all on a shopping spree last weekend. Designer bags, shoes, whatever. But me wanting to reinvest in the business? That was apparently a problem. That's when I started really thinking about our whole relationship. Flashing back to when I first opened the gym, Sarah actually told me I was being irresponsible for using our savings. Mostly my savings, by the way, as part of the down payment. Said I should be realistic and keep my trainer job at the corporate gym. Now that we're successful, she loves telling her friends how we built this business from scratch. Where was that when I was sleeping on a camping mat in my office during renovations, because we couldn't afford contractors? Meanwhile, Emma was literally bringing me articles about small business expansion strategies during her training sessions. One day, she came in excited because she'd found this study about how independent gyms can compete with big chains by focusing on community building. She wasn't even getting paid for this, just genuinely wanted to see the business succeed. But here's what really opened my eyes. I had this client, Mark, changed his name, obviously, who was going through a divorce. He'd been training with me for years, always seemed pretty happy. One day, he was doing deadlifts and just started opening up about his marriage. Everything he said hit way too close to home. How his wife would dismiss his achievements. How she'd spend money on herself but criticize his business investments. How she'd tell her friends he was emotionally unavailable but shoot him down every time he tried to connect. Sound familiar? I started paying attention to Sarah's behavior more closely. Noticed how she'd only show interest in the gym when she could use it to impress people. Like when her college friends visited, suddenly she was giving them tours, acting like she was involved in day-to-day operations. Meanwhile, she couldn't even remember the names of my staff, who'd been with me for years. The money thing really started bothering me too. I found out she'd been telling her friends I was obsessed with work while dropping hundreds at fancy restaurants with her work friends every week. One time, I suggested setting up a proper business emergency fund, and she acted like I was taking money away from our future. Sorry, didn't realize Jimmy Choo bags were essential for our future. Emma noticed something was off during our sessions. Never prying, but she'd say things like, "You seem distracted today. Want to focus on heavy bag work?" She knew hitting things helped me think. One time, I mentioned dealing with some business stress, and she shared this breathing technique she uses with her PT patients. No judgment, no criticism, just genuine support. Then came this eye-opening moment at Sarah's company party. First one I'd been to in a while because, running a business. Sarah was introducing me to her coworkers, and I kid you not, she described me as just a gym owner with this weird, apologetic tone. Just a gym owner. The same gym that paid for her Range Rover. Meanwhile, Emma was telling her PT clients about my gym's adaptive fitness program for seniors, something she'd helped brainstorm ideas for. Found out she'd been recommending us to her patients because she believed in what we were building. No ulterior motive, no social media clout chasing, just genuine respect for the work one did. I started realizing how much time I spent walking on eggshells around Sarah. Like I couldn't talk about the gym without her making some passive-aggressive comment about work-life balance. Couldn't mention potential upgrades or expansions without her sighing dramatically. Couldn't even celebrate small wins without her somehow making it about her. The final straw? I found Sarah's open laptop one day. Wasn't snooping. Was moving it off the couch, and her Facebook messages were up. She was complaining to her friends about how I chose the gym over her and was probably cheating with some gym bunny. The same woman who hadn't asked me about my day in months was playing victim online. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about everything. The dismissive comments, the financial double standards, the constant criticism. Realized I was more comfortable talking business with a client, Emma, than sharing anything real with my own wife. I started hitting the heavy bags after hours, trying to clear my head. One night, I stayed so late that the cleaning crew had come and gone. Just sat in my office, looking at old photos from when we first opened. Sarah was smiling in those pictures, acting proud. When did that turn to resentment? Or was it always there, and I just didn't want to see it? Sarah must have sensed something was different because she started doing this weird thing where she'd randomly show up at the gym. Not to work out, mind you, just to surprise me. After 8 years of barely showing interest in my business, suddenly she was there all the time. The first time she came by, she walked in right in the middle of Emma's session. I was spotting Emma during a particularly heavy set of squats, giving the usual trainer feedback about form and breathing. Sarah just stood there watching, with this look on her face I couldn't quite read. After Emma finished her set, she politely introduced herself to Sarah, totally professional. Sarah just gave this tight smile and said she needed to steal her husband for a minute. The conversation that followed was bizarre. Sarah started going off about how I seemed different lately, said I wasn't present in our marriage anymore. Rich coming from someone who'd spent the last few months basically ignoring me, unless she needed something. But here's the kicker. She suggested I cut back on my client load and delegate more so we could spend more time together. Translation: she wanted me to give up the hands-on part of my business that I actually loved, the part where I got to help people change their lives, the part that built this whole thing in the first place. Meanwhile, my business was actually growing faster than ever. Word had gotten around about our new adaptive fitness program, the one Emma helped brainstorm, and we were getting referrals from the sports medicine clinic. Sarah's response? Maybe we should hire someone to handle that program so I could focus on management. But check this out. The next day, she posts this long Instagram caption about being a proud gym owner's wife with a photo of our storefront. Didn't mention it was taken months ago or that she'd spent the last year complaining about how much time I spent there. The comments were full of her friends talking about what a power couple we were. I nearly choked on my protein shake reading that. Emma noticed the change in atmosphere immediately. She started scheduling her sessions during quieter hours, saying she didn't want to cause any tension. I assured her everything was professional, but she just gave me this knowing look and said, "Sometimes people create drama where there isn't any, because they're afraid of losing something they've already lost." That hit hard because it was exactly what was happening. Sarah wasn't upset about losing me. She was upset about losing control. Things got really weird when Sarah started trying to mark her territory at the gym. She'd bring me lunch, something she hadn't done in literally years, but only when Emma was scheduled for training. Started posting gym selfies with captions like "supporting my man," even though she barely worked out anymore. Even tried to sit in on one of Emma's sessions, claiming she wanted to learn more about what you do all day. One time, Sarah actually interrupted a session to ask my opinion about curtains. Curtains! In the middle of me coaching Emma through a complex Olympic lift. Do you know how dangerous that could have been? Emma, bless her, just racked the bar and calmly suggested we take a water break. The final straw came during a staff meeting. We were discussing the expansion plans, looking at potential locations for a second gym, crunching numbers, all that fun stuff. Emma had connected us with some of her PT colleagues who were interested in a possible collaboration. It was exciting, real growth potential. Sarah showed up unannounced again, walked into the meeting, and started questioning everything. Isn't one location enough? Why take on more debt? Don't you think you're being a bit ambitious? In front of my entire staff. Even made this snide comment about how some people were getting awfully invested in our business decisions. After everyone left, I finally confronted her, asked her what her problem was. That's when she dropped it. She thought Emma and I were having an affair. Based on what? According to her, Emma was too interested in the business to be just a client. Said she'd seen how we looked at each other during sessions. I lost it. Told her she was seeing things that weren't there because she couldn't handle the fact that someone actually respected my work. Pointed out that, in the past month, Emma had shown more genuine interest in my business than Sarah had in years. Sarah's response? Well, if you care about her opinion so much, maybe you should marry her instead. That's when everything clicked. Sarah wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing the lifestyle my business provided. She didn't care about the gym's success, except for how it made her look to others. And she definitely didn't care about my dreams unless they aligned with her image of what our life should be. I went home that night and slept in the guest room. Didn't even tell her. Just grabbed my pillow and went. She didn't come looking for me. Probably too busy posting on social media about how hard marriage is or whatever. That first night in the guest room was weird. I kept waiting for Sarah to come knocking, to ask what was wrong, to show literally any interest in fixing things. She didn't. Instead, I could hear her on the phone in our bedroom, probably telling her friends about what a terrible husband I was. The walls in our house aren't that thick, and I definitely caught phrases like married to his gym and that woman, meaning Emma. Next morning was even weirder. Sarah acted like everything was normal. Made coffee, asked if I wanted breakfast. Like she hadn't just accused me of having an affair in front of my entire staff the day before. I grabbed my gym bag and left without eating. She posted on Instagram an hour later about marriage taking work, with some stupid inspirational quote background. The disconnect was insane. At the gym, I had to do damage control. Called a staff meeting before opening and explained the situation. Told them straight up there was nothing going on with Emma, but my marriage was definitely having issues. They were surprisingly supportive. Mike, my head trainer, actually said he'd been wondering how long I'd put up with Sarah's behavior. Apparently, she'd been making snide comments to the staff when I wasn't around. Emma texted, saying she was switching to training with Ashley, our female trainer, to avoid causing more drama. I respected that, but it also made me angry. Why should a paying client have to change their routine because my wife couldn't handle the fact that someone actually valued my work? I told Emma she didn't have to switch, but she insisted. Said something about not wanting to be the reason anyone's marriage had problems. That hit me hard. Here was someone willing to inconvenience herself just to avoid drama, while my own wife was creating drama left and right. Emma even offered to connect Ashley with her PT contacts for the expansion plans, so the business wouldn't lose those opportunities. Meanwhile, Sarah was still telling everyone who'd listen that the expansion was a midlife crisis. Things at home got progressively worse. Sarah started this weird campaign of passive-aggressive gestures. She'd cook these elaborate dinners, something she hadn't done in years, but then get mad when I had late clients. Would schedule date nights without checking my calendar, then play victim when I had prior commitments. Even started showing up at the gym in her old workout gear, trying to recreate how we met or something. One night, she left her laptop open again, starting to think this was deliberate, and I saw her Facebook messages. She was part of this group chat where she was painting this completely twisted version of our marriage. According to her, I was this controlling husband who changed once I got successful, and Emma was this homewrecker trying to steal her man. The responses were wild. Her friends suggesting she document everything and protect her assets. Protect what assets? The ones my business paid for? The Range Rover she drove that we bought with gym profits? The designer bags she bought with the disposable income we had because I built something successful? The next day, I did something I should have done months ago. I went to see a lawyer, not to file for divorce yet, but to understand my options. The lawyer confirmed what I suspected. The business was pretty much protected since I started it before the marriage, and Sarah had minimal involvement. I actually showed him screenshots of her social media posts dismissing the gym as my obsession. The lawyer said that could help prove she wasn't involved in building the business. When I got home that evening, Sarah was waiting with this whole production. Candles lit, dinner made, dressed up like she used to when we were dating. For a split second, it almost worked. Almost. Then she started talking about how we should reconnect by taking a long vacation. Suggested I could step back from the gym for a while, let the staff handle things. That's when it hit me. She didn't want to fix our marriage. She wanted to fix her control over me. The gym represented something she couldn't control, and Emma represented someone who valued that part of me. I looked at her across that candlelit table and felt nothing. No anger, no hurt, just emptiness. When did my wife become a stranger? Or was she always this person and I just didn't want to see it? I want a separation, I said, right in the middle of her vacation planning monologue. The change in her face was instant. First, shock, then anger, then this calculated look I'd seen too many times lately. Is this about her? She demanded. Are you leaving me for that trainer? No, I replied. I'm leaving because you just proved my point. After everything that's happened, you still think this is about another woman? It's not. It's about you not respecting me, my work, or my dreams, unless they fit your narrative. She started crying then. Not quiet tears, but full-on dramatic sobs. Kept saying she'd change, she'd do better, she'd be more supportive. But all I could think about was how she'd been telling her friends to document everything. Her tears didn't seem real anymore. I packed a bag while she was still crying in the dining room. Called my buddy Jake, who owns a boxing gym across town. He had a spare room and understood the situation. As I was leaving, Sarah suddenly switched tactics. Started talking about how I was throwing away 8 years of marriage. How I'd regret this. How Emma wouldn't respect me once the novelty wore off. Emma, I said, has shown me more respect as a client than you have as a wife. And that's the problem. The first week after moving out was a weird mix of feeling like crap and feeling weirdly free. Jake's got this spare room above his boxing gym. Nothing fancy, but it felt more like home than my actual house had in months. Sarah was blowing up my phone with everything from angry accusations to tearful apologies. I just let it go to voicemail. Emma had switched to training with Ashley, and I respected that boundary. But fate's got a funny way of playing with your life sometimes. About 2 weeks after I moved out, I was grabbing coffee at this little place near the gym. You know, one of those hipster joints where they actually know what they're doing with espresso. And there she was, sitting at a corner table with a laptop and a stack of PT files. Not gonna lie, I almost turned around and left. Didn't want to make things awkward. But she saw me and waved me over. I heard about the separation, she said. No judgment, no pity, just acknowledgement. Turns out news travels fast in the fitness community. We ended up talking for 3 hours. Not about Sarah, not about the drama, but about everything else. She was working on expanding her PT practice, maybe opening her own clinic someday. I told her about my plans for the second gym location. It was just easy. No walking on eggshells, no hidden agendas, just 2 people sharing their dreams and actually giving a damn about what the other person was saying. Meanwhile, Sarah was going full scorched earth. She'd posted this vague Instagram story about staying strong through betrayal or some BS. Her friends were sending me nasty messages about how I was throwing away a good woman. Good woman? The same one who told me she didn't owe me intimacy and tried to sabotage my business? The next day, I had this meeting with a commercial real estate agent about the second location. Emma had mentioned this up-and-coming area where the sports medicine clinic was expanding. Thought it might be good for a gym. She was right. The demographics were perfect. Lot of young professionals, not much competition. After the meeting, I texted Emma to thank her for the tip. She suggested meeting for coffee again to discuss potential PT collaboration opportunities. It was strictly business, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel something shift. Here's the thing about Emma that's different from Sarah, she gets it. Not just the business stuff, but the grind, the vision, the why behind what I do. When I talk about wanting to help people change their lives through fitness, she doesn't roll her eyes or call it an obsession. She adds to the conversation, shares her own experiences, makes it better. One evening, we were going over some plans for a possible gym PT clinic partnership. Ashley was there too, keeping everything professional. And Emma said something that stuck with me. She was talking about her own journey, how she got into PT after her sports injury. And she said, sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead us to where we're supposed to be. While this was happening, Sarah was getting desperate. She showed up at the gym one morning, all tears and apologies. Said she'd been talking to a therapist, realized her mistakes, wanted to work things out. Then, in the same breath, she started questioning me about Emma again. Couldn't even fake remorse without letting her true colors show. The contrast was stark. Sarah saw the gym as competition for my attention. Emma saw it as part of who I am. Sarah tried to change me to fit her image. Emma appreciated me for exactly what I am, a guy who's passionate about fitness and helping people. Things came to a head when Sarah found out about the second location plans. She actually tried to contact the real estate agent to say I was making decisions without consulting my wife. The agent, bless her heart, called me immediately. I had to explain about the separation. That's when I realized I needed to make this official before Sarah could cause any more damage. I called my lawyer that afternoon. While I was there, I got a text from Emma. She'd heard about a grant program for gyms partnering with healthcare providers. No pressure, she wrote. Just passing along information. Thought it might help. The timing of that message hit different. Later that night, Jake found me hitting the heavy bag after hours. Asked me straight up what was holding me back. Not just with the divorce, but with everything. Made me realize I'd spent so long trying to make Sarah happy that I'd forgotten what made me happy. The next day, I had coffee with Emma again. This time, it felt different. Not just business, not just friendship, but possibility. She must have felt it too, because she said, once all this is settled, maybe we should discuss this over dinner instead of coffee? For the first time in months, I felt like I could see a future that actually made sense. 2 months into our separation, Sarah's company went through what they called a strategic reorganization. Translation, they fired half the marketing department, including her. Suddenly, Miss I don't owe you intimacy was facing some real-world consequences of her actions. Here's where it gets good. Remember all those social media posts she made about being a boss babe and a marketing genius? All those designer purchases she justified as maintaining her professional image? Yeah, turns out those skills don't mean much when you're job hunting in a tough market. The day after she lost her job, she called me crying. Not about us, not about the marriage, but about money. See, she just financed that Range Rover 3 months ago, had a bunch of credit card debt I didn't even know about. Wanted to know if I could help out until she found something new. Meanwhile, I was finalizing the lease on the second gym location, the one she said was a midlife crisis. Turns out, Emma's tip about that up-and-coming area was solid gold. The demographics were perfect, and we had a wait list of PT clients before we even opened. Speaking of Emma, things were developing there too. We'd kept everything professional during the separation, but we'd been spending more time together, working on the gym PT clinic collaboration. One evening, after a particularly successful meeting with investors, we went out to celebrate with the team. The way she looked at me across that table. Let's just say I finally understood what it means to have someone actually see you. But back to Sarah's karma. She started showing up at the gym unannounced again, but this time with a different agenda. First, she tried the sweet ex-wife routine. All tears and I miss us, and we were so good together. When that didn't work, she switched to threats. Started telling people I'd abandoned her, that I'd planned this all along. The final straw? She actually tried to claim she deserved part of the second location, because she was still technically my wife when I started planning it. My lawyer actually laughed when I told him. Showed him the screenshots of her social media posts calling it my midlife crisis and her messages to friends dismissing my business plans. That shut that down real quick. Then came the day of the second location's lease signing. I posted a simple photo on Instagram, just me holding the keys, thanking my team for their support. Nothing fancy. Emma had helped review the contract. Her brother's a real estate lawyer, and she tagged along for moral support. Sarah saw that post and lost it completely. Started blowing up my phone with crazy messages. Called Emma every name in the book. Even showed up at the new location while we were measuring for equipment, causing such a scene that one of my trainers had to escort her out. Emma and I kept things professional until the divorce was filed. But the night after I signed the papers, we had dinner. Just us. No business talk, no pretenses. I told her everything. How she'd shown me what real support looks like. How she'd helped me see my own worth. She admitted she'd been interested since that first coffee shop conversation, but respected my situation too much to act on it. The new location opened last week. Guess who showed up trying to get a free membership? Sarah. With some story about wanting to support my business now that she understands its value. Yeah, right. Funny how she suddenly respects the gym when she can't afford her fancy boutique fit classes anymore. Emma was there for the opening, not as a client or a business partner, but as my date. The look on Sarah's face when she saw us together? Priceless. Especially when Emma started talking about our plans for a third location that'll include a full PT clinic. The best part? Sarah's Range Rover got repossessed last week. She's driving a used Civic now. Karma's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Life with Emma was easy. Not in a boring way, but in a way that felt natural, right? We understood each other. She got my drive, my passion for the gym, and, most importantly, she supported it. The third location was in the planning stages, and this time, it was a true partnership, a collaborative vision. We spent hours brainstorming, bouncing ideas off each other, and even arguing productively about the best way to implement our vision. It was exhilarating. Sarah, of course, wasn't thrilled. She'd stopped showing up at the gym after the grand opening fiasco, but her presence lingered like a bad smell. She'd send cryptic texts late at night, usually after a few drinks, hinting at regrets and accusing me of moving on too fast. I ignored them. I had found something real, something worth fighting for, and I wasn't going to let Sarah's bitterness poison it. Then came the email. It landed in my inbox late one evening, a subject line that made my blood run cold: confidential business information. The email was anonymous, a throwaway Gmail account. The message itself was short and to the point. Liam, I'm writing to inform you of a serious breach of confidentiality. Emma has been sharing sensitive business information about gym name with her contacts at Sports Medicine Clinic. She is actively working to undermine your expansion plans in order to benefit her own practice. I have attached documents as proof. Attached to the email were several files. Spreadsheets containing financial projections for the third location, internal memos discussing marketing strategies, even excerpts from our investor presentations. Information that only a handful of people had access to. My heart hammered against my ribs. Disbelief warred with a sickening sense of betrayal. Emma? My Emma? The woman who had been so supportive, so encouraging, the woman I was starting to build a life with? Could it be true? I spent the next hour poring over the documents, the weight in my chest growing heavier with each passing minute. The information was damning. Detailed financial projections, expansion strategies, and even client lists were all there. It was clear someone with insider knowledge had leaked this information, and the anonymous sender was pointing the finger directly at Emma. I wanted to scream, to deny it, to rip apart the evidence and prove it was all a lie. But the facts were staring me in the face. The spreadsheets were formatted the way Emma liked, the writing style in the memos eerily similar to her own. Doubt, a poisonous serpent, began to coil around my heart. I thought about confronting her immediately, but something held me back. I needed to be sure. I needed to understand. I couldn't believe that the woman I loved, the woman who had shown me such genuine kindness and support, was capable of such a deep betrayal. Sleep was impossible that night. My mind raced, replaying every conversation I'd had with Emma, searching for clues, for any hint of deception. Every innocent comment, every casual question, now seemed laden with hidden meaning. Had I been a fool? Had I been so blinded by my desire for connection, for genuine affection, that I had ignored the red flags? Was Emma just using me, manipulating me to further her own ambitions? The thought was unbearable. The next morning, I was a zombie. My staff noticed. Mike asked if everything was okay. I brushed him off, mumbled something about a late night, and retreated to my office. I knew I couldn't let this fester. I had to confront Emma, but I needed a plan. I needed to approach this with a clear head, to give her the benefit of the doubt, even though every fiber of my being screamed for answers. I called her, my voice strained. "Hey, can you meet me for lunch? There's something I need to talk to you about." Her voice was warm, cheerful. "Of course, Liam. What's up? Everything okay? We'll talk about it at lunch," I said, my voice tight. "Just meet me at that cafe near the clinic. 1 o'clock? Okay," she said, her voice laced with concern. "See you then." As I hung up the phone, the doubt gnawed at me. Was that genuine concern? Or was it just a performance? A carefully crafted facade to hide her true intentions? The next few hours crawled by. I tried to focus on work, but my mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Love, betrayal, anger, confusion. It was a toxic cocktail that threatened to consume me. The cafe was buzzing with lunchtime chatter, but I barely registered the noise. My gaze was fixed on the door, waiting for Emma. When she finally walked in, sunlight streaming in behind her, my heart lurched. She looked beautiful. Her smile was radiant, her eyes sparkling with genuine affection. How could someone so seemingly good be capable of such deception? She rushed over to me, her smile faltering slightly as she took in my expression. "Liam, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "Emma, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Her brow furrowed. "Of course, Liam. You know I'm always honest with you." The words tasted like ash in my mouth. I pulled the printed emails from my bag, the incriminating documents clipped neatly together. I slid them across the table towards her. "Have you seen these before?" I asked, my voice low and controlled. She picked them up, her expression transforming from concern to confusion as she began to read. Her eyes widened, her face paling. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "It's an email I received last night," I said, my voice hardening. "An anonymous email accusing you of leaking confidential business information about the gym. These are internal documents, Emma. Financial projections, marketing strategies, client lists. Information that only a handful of people have access to." She stared at the documents, her hands trembling. "Liam, I don't understand. I've never seen these before. I would never do something like this." "Then how did this information get out?" I asked, my voice laced with suspicion. "How did it end up in the hands of someone who clearly wants to undermine my business?" "I don't know," she said, her voice rising in desperation. "Liam, you have to believe me. I would never betray you like this. I love you. I would never do anything to hurt you or your business. But the evidence." I trailed off, unable to voice the accusation. "I know, it looks bad," she said, her eyes pleading. "But I swear, Liam, I'm innocent. Someone is trying to frame me." "Who?" I asked, my voice skeptical. "Who would want to frame you, Emma?" She hesitated, her eyes darting around the cafe. I don't know. Maybe someone from the sports medicine clinic? Someone who's jealous of my success, of our relationship?" It sounded flimsy, a desperate attempt to deflect the blame. But I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. "Emma, look me in the eyes," I said, my voice softening. "Tell me, right now, that you had nothing to do with this. Tell me that you didn't leak this information." She met my gaze, her eyes filled with tears. "I swear, Liam. I swear on everything I hold dear. I had nothing to do with this. I am innocent." I stared into her eyes, searching for any sign of deceit. And for a moment, I thought I saw it. A flicker of uncertainty, a shadow of guilt. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. I wanted to believe her, but the evidence was overwhelming. The doubt lingered, a constant, nagging voice in the back of my mind. I need some time to think," I said, my voice heavy with uncertainty. I need to process this. She nodded, her eyes filled with pain. I understand, she said, her voice barely audible. But please, Liam, don't let this ruin what we have. Don't let someone else's malice destroy our love. I stood up, pushing my chair back with a screech. I don't know what to believe anymore, Emma, I said, my voice raw with emotion. I need time. Just give me some time. I turned and walked away, leaving her sitting there, the incriminating documents scattered on the table between us. Each step I took felt like a betrayal, a rejection of the woman I loved, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being played, that I was a pawn in someone else's game. As I walked out of the cafe, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. The trust I had placed in Emma, the love I had felt for her, now seemed tainted, poisoned by doubt and suspicion. The days that followed were a blur of paranoia and uncertainty. I tried to focus on work, on the expansion plans, but my mind kept drifting back to the email, to the documents, to Emma's tearful denials. I replayed our conversation in my head 100 times, dissecting every word, every gesture, searching for any inconsistency, any sign of deception. But I found nothing. She had been convincing, sincere. But was it all an act? I avoided Emma, unable to face her, unable to reconcile the woman I loved with the woman. The email accused her of being. I knew I was hurting her, that my silence was a form of judgment. But I couldn't help myself. I needed to know the truth, and I couldn't trust my own judgment. One evening, Jake found me hitting the heavy bag with a ferocity that bordered on self-destruction. Whoa, Liam, easy there, he said, grabbing my arm. You're gonna tear something. I don't know what to do, Jake, I said, my voice raw with frustration. I got this email, accusing Emma of leaking business secrets. The evidence is pretty damning, but I don't want to believe it. I love her. Jake listened patiently, his expression grave. Look, Liam, he said when I had finished. I don't know Emma, but I know you. And I know you wouldn't be with someone who was capable of that kind of betrayal. But what if I'm wrong? I asked, my voice filled with self-doubt. What if I'm just blinded by my feelings? Jake shook his head. Then you need to find out the truth. You can't let this eat you alive. You need to do some digging, clear your head, and find out what's really going on. His words resonated with me. I couldn't just sit around and wait for the truth to magically reveal itself. I had to take action. The next day, I decided to hire a private investigator. It was an expensive and drastic measure, but I felt like I had no other choice. I needed an objective perspective, someone who could uncover the truth without being influenced by my emotions. I found a reputable investigator online, a woman named Miss Davies who specialized in corporate espionage. I met with her in her dimly lit office, laid out the situation, and handed her the email and the documents. I need you to find out who sent this email, I said, my voice firm. And I need you to determine whether Emma was involved in leaking this information. Miss Davies listened intently, her eyes sharp and assessing. I can do that, Mr. O'Connell, she said, her voice professional. But it will take time, and it may not be cheap. I don't care about the cost, I said. I just need to know the truth. Over the next few days, Miss Davies and her team went to work. They tracked down the anonymous email address, traced its origin, and interviewed several people at the sports medicine clinic. The tension was unbearable. I felt like I was living in a pressure cooker, waiting for the inevitable explosion. Then, a week later, Miss Davies called. I have some information for you, Mr. O'Connell, she said, her voice neutral. Can you meet me at my office? My heart pounded as I drove to her office, my palms sweating. This was it, the moment of truth. Miss Davies was waiting for me in her office, a file folder sitting on her desk. She gestured for me to sit down. We've identified the sender of the anonymous email, she said, her voice flat. It was sent from a computer at the sports medicine clinic. using a temporary internet connection. Who sent it? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Miss! Davies opened the file folder and pulled out a photograph. My breath caught in my throat. The email was sent by Sarah, she said, her voice devoid of emotion. Your ex-wife. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Sarah? My Sarah? The woman who had accused Emma of betrayal had been the one who had orchestrated the entire thing? But why? I stammered, my mind struggling to comprehend the revelation. Miss? Davies shrugged. Jealousy, resentment, a desire for revenge. It's a common motive in cases like this. She wanted to destroy your relationship with Emma, to sabotage your business, to make you suffer. The pieces began to fall into place. Sarah's sudden interest in the gym, her attempts to undermine the expansion plans, her constant accusations against Emma. It all made sense now. She had been playing me all along, manipulating me with her tears and her apologies, while secretly plotting my downfall. A wave of anger washed over me, followed by a profound sense of betrayal. How could she do this? How could she stoop so low? What about Emma? I asked, my voice hoarse. Was she involved in any of this, Miss? Davies shook her head. Our investigation has revealed no evidence to suggest that Miss Thompson was involved in leaking any information. She appears to be completely innocent. Relief washed over me, so intense it almost brought me to my knees. Emma was innocent. My Emma was innocent. I stood up, my legs shaky. Thank you, Miss Davies, I said, my voice filled with gratitude. You've given me my life back. As I walked out of her office, I knew what I had to do. I had to find Emma, to apologize for doubting her, to tell her the truth. And I had to confront Sarah, to demand an explanation for her actions. Finding Emma wasn't easy. After our lunch confrontation, she'd given me space, respecting my need to process. But I knew she was hurting, and I was desperate to make things right. I found her at the gym, working with a client. I waited until her session was over, standing awkwardly by the entrance, my heart pounding. When she saw me, her face was a mixture of surprise and apprehension. She walked towards me, her eyes wary. Liam, she said, her voice hesitant. What are you doing here? Emma, I need to talk to you, I said, my voice filled with remorse. I know everything. I know about the email. I know about Sarah. Her eyes widened. What do you mean? I took a deep breath and told her everything. About the private investigator, about the evidence pointing to Sarah, about the depth of her betrayal. As I spoke, I saw the emotions flicker across Emma's face. Disbelief, anger, hurt, and finally, relief. When I had finished, she stared at me, her eyes filled with tears. I knew it, she said, her voice trembling. I knew someone was trying to frame me, but I never thought it would be Sarah. I'm so sorry, Emma, I said, reaching out to take her hand. I was so wrong. I doubted you. I let my own insecurities and my past cloud my judgment. Can you ever forgive me? She squeezed my hand, her eyes filled with forgiveness. Of course, Liam, she said. I understand. You were hurt, confused, and I knew you would eventually find out the truth. Does this mean we're okay? I asked, my voice filled with hope. She smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that lit up her face. It means we have a lot to talk about, she said. But yes, Liam, we're okay. The relief that washed over me was overwhelming. I had almost lost her, almost let my own demons destroy the most beautiful thing that had ever happened to me. But I had been given a second chance. That evening, we had dinner at our favorite restaurant. We talked for hours, sharing our fears, our insecurities, and our hopes for the future. We reaffirmed our love for each other, our trust in each other, and our commitment to building a life together. It was like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. The doubt and suspicion that had been poisoning my mind were gone, replaced by a sense of peace and clarity. I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, There would be challenges, obstacles to overcome. But I also knew that, with Emma by my side, I could face anything. The next step was confronting Sarah. I called her, my voice cold and controlled. "I know what you did, Sarah," I said. "I know about the email. I know you tried to sabotage my business and destroy my relationship with Emma." There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Then, Sarah's voice, weak and defensive. "I don't know what you're talking about, Liam," she said. "I would never do anything like that. Don't lie to me, Sarah," I said, my voice hardening. "I have proof. I know you sent the email from a computer at the sports medicine clinic. I know you've been trying to undermine me every step of the way." Her voice broke. "Okay, fine," she said, her voice filled with bitterness. "I did it. But you drove me to it, Liam. You abandoned me for that homewrecker. You left me with nothing." "I didn't abandon you, Sarah," I said, my voice filled with sadness. "You pushed me away. You refused to support me, to respect me, to love me. You created this mess, and now you have to live with the consequences. What are you going to do?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Are you going to press charges? Ruin my life?" "I'm not going to press charges, Sarah," I said. "I'm not going to waste any more time or energy on you. I'm just going to move on. I'm going to build a life for myself, a life filled with love and happiness, and you're not going to be a part of it." I hung up the phone, severing the last connection to my past. I had finally freed myself from Sarah's bitterness and resentment, from her attempts to control and manipulate me. The third location was a resounding success. Emma and I worked together, our partnership stronger than ever. We built a community, a family, a place where people could come to achieve their fitness goals and find support and encouragement. And as for Emma and me, we're engaged now, planning a small wedding surrounded by the people who love and support us. I finally learned what true love is, and it was worth all the pain. The wedding was everything I'd ever dreamed of, even if I hadn't known to dream it. Small, intimate, filled with laughter and love. The ceremony was held in the courtyard of the original gym, the place where it all started. Jake was my best man, of course, and Mike officiated. Emma looked breathtaking in her simple, elegant dress, her eyes shining with happiness. Sarah wasn't invited. And honestly, I hadn't thought about her much since our final phone call. I'd heard through the grapevine that she was struggling to find a new job, still blaming me for her misfortunes. But I refused to let her negativity cloud my joy. I was moving forward, and she was staying behind. During the reception, as Emma and I danced our first dance, I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed with gratitude. I had been through so much pain and heartache, but it had all led me to this moment, to this woman, to this incredible life. "I love you, Emma," I whispered in her ear. "I love you more, Liam," she replied, her voice filled with emotion. The third location was thriving, and we were already starting to plan a fourth, this one with a dedicated physical therapy wing, run by Emma and her team. We were building something special, something that would make a real difference in people's lives. One evening, a few months after the wedding, Emma and I were working late at the gym, going over some financial projections for the new PT wing. The rain was coming down in sheets outside, the wind howling against the windows. Suddenly, there was a loud banging on the front door. We both jumped, startled. "Who could that be at this hour?" Emma asked, her brow furrowed. I went to the door, peering through the peephole. My blood ran cold. It was Sarah. She was standing in the rain, soaked to the bone, her face pale and drawn. She looked desperate, almost frantic. I hesitated for a moment, unsure what to do. I didn't want to let her in, didn't want to reopen the wounds of the past, but I couldn't just leave her out in the rain. I opened the door a crack. "What do you want, Sarah?" I asked, my voice cold. She pushed the door open wider, forcing her way inside. "Liam, I need your help," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't know where else to turn." Emma walked over, her expression wary. "What's going on, Sarah?" she asked, her voice cautious. Sarah ignored her, her eyes fixed on me. "I'm in trouble, Liam," she said. "Big trouble." "What kind of trouble?" I asked, my voice skeptical. She took a deep breath, her eyes darting around the gym. I've gotten into some debt," she said. "More than I can handle. And I'm being threatened." "Threatened by whom?" Emma asked, her voice sharp. Sarah hesitated, her face paling even further. Some people I borrowed money from," she said. "They're not very nice people, and they want their money back. Now, and you think I'm going to help you?" I asked, my voice incredulous. "After everything you've done to me, to Emma? You think I'm just going to hand over my hard-earned money to bail you out?" "I know I don't deserve it," she said, her voice breaking. "But I'm desperate, Liam. I'm scared. If I don't come up with the money, they're going to hurt me." "Why should we believe you?" Emma asked, her voice hard. "You've lied to us before. You've tried to destroy our lives." "I know," Sarah said, her voice pleading. "But I swear I'm telling the truth this time. I'm in real danger. Please, Liam, please help me." I stared at her, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face, to let her face the consequences of her actions. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the woman I had once loved, couldn't bear the thought of her being hurt. "How much do you need?" I asked, my voice resigned. Sarah's eyes widened with relief. $50,000, she said. $50,000. A huge sum of money. Enough to put a serious dent in our expansion plans. "I don't have that kind of money lying around," I said, my voice incredulous. "I know," she said, her voice pleading. "But maybe you could take out a loan? Or sell some assets?" "I don't know, Liam. I'm just begging you. Please, save me." I turned to Emma, my eyes searching hers. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. "What do you think?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. "I think we need to be careful," she said, her voice cautious. "We need to make sure she's telling the truth. And we need to protect ourselves." "What do you mean?" I asked. "I mean, we need to call the police," she said. "We need to let them handle this. We can't just hand over $50,000 to some unknown criminals. That's just asking for trouble." Sarah's face fell. "No," she cried. "You can't call the police. They'll only make things worse. These people aren't afraid of the police. They'll hurt me even more if you involve them. That's exactly why we should call the police," Emma said, her voice firm. "We can't let these criminals get away with threatening you. They need to be stopped." I stared at Sarah, my mind churning. Emma was right. Calling the police was the right thing to do. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a trap. "Okay," I said, my voice resigned. "We'll call the police. But I'm not handing over any money until I know you're safe." Sarah's face crumpled. "You don't trust me, do you?" she said, her voice filled with despair. "After everything that's happened?" I said, my voice hard. "No, Sarah, I don't trust you." We called the police. 2 officers arrived within minutes, their expressions grim as they listened to Sarah's story. They took down all the details, asked her about the people she owed money to, and promised to investigate. Sarah was visibly relieved, but also nervous. She kept glancing out the window, as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. The police officers advised her to stay with us for the night, for her own safety. They promised to provide protection and to keep us informed of their progress. Emma and I exchanged uneasy glances. Having Sarah in our home, even under police protection, felt like a violation, a contamination. We set up a spare room for her, giving her some blankets and pillows. She thanked us, but her eyes were filled with fear. The night was long and tense. We barely slept, listening for every creak and groan of the house. The rain continued to fall, a relentless drumming on the roof. The next morning, the police officers arrived early. They told us they had identified the people Sarah owed money to, a known group of loan sharks with a history of violence. They were planning a sting operation to catch them in the act. "We need your help," one of the officers said to me. "We need you to act as bait. We want you to arrange a meeting with these people, to hand over the money. We'll be watching from a distance, ready to intervene." My heart pounded. This was insane. Dangerous. But I couldn't back out now. I had to do everything I could to protect Sarah, even if she didn't deserve it. "Okay," I said, my voice trembling. "I'll do it." Emma squeezed my hand, her eyes filled with concern. "Be careful, Liam," she said. "Please be careful." The police officers spent the next few hours preparing for the sting operation. They gave me a wire to wear under my shirt, showed me how to signal them if I felt threatened, and explained the plan in detail. I was terrified, but I knew I had to do this. For Sarah. For Emma. For myself. We arranged a meeting with the loan sharks for that evening, at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. It was a dark and desolate place, the perfect setting for a confrontation. As I drove to the warehouse, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. I kept replaying the plan in my head, trying to remember every detail. When I arrived at the warehouse, the rain had stopped, but the air was thick with humidity. The warehouse loomed before me, a dark and ominous presence. I took a deep breath and walked inside. The warehouse was cavernous and empty, filled with shadows and echoes. I could hear the sound of rats scurrying in the distance. I waited for a few minutes, my heart pounding. Then I heard footsteps. 3 men emerged from the shadows, their faces grim and menacing. They were dressed in dark clothes, their eyes cold and hard. "You got the money?" one of them asked, his voice rough and gravelly. I nodded, my voice trembling. "Yeah," I said. "I got it, but I want to see Sarah first." The man gestured to the side, and Sarah emerged from the shadows. She looked pale and scared, but she seemed unharmed. "Okay," I said, reaching into my bag. "Here's the money. Just let Sarah go." I handed over the bag. As the men began counting the money, I saw my opportunity. I gave the signal, a subtle tap on my chest. Suddenly, the warehouse doors burst open, and the police officers swarmed inside. The loan sharks were caught completely off guard. They tried to run, but it was too late. The police officers quickly subdued them, handcuffing them and leading them away. Sarah ran to me, throwing her arms around me. "Thank you, Liam," she cried. "Thank you for saving me." I pushed her away gently. "It's over, Sarah," I said, my voice cold. "You're safe now. Just try to make better choices in the future." The police officers led Sarah away, taking her to the station for questioning. I watched her go, feeling a mixture of relief and exhaustion. It was finally over. The nightmare was finally over. As I walked out of the warehouse, Emma was waiting for me. She ran to me, throwing her arms around me. "I was so worried about you," she said, her voice filled with relief. "Are you okay?" I hugged her tight, my heart overflowing with love. "I'm okay," I said. "We're both okay." We drove home in silence, the events of the evening weighing heavily on our minds. When we arrived, we went straight to bed, holding each other tight. We had been through so much, but we had survived, and our love had only grown stronger. The loan sharks were arrested and charged with extortion and making threats. Sarah cooperated with the police, providing them with valuable information about their operation. A few weeks later, she called me. I almost didn't answer, but something compelled me to pick up the phone. "Liam, it's Sarah," she said, her voice hesitant. "I just wanted to thank you again for saving my life and for not pressing charges against me." "You're welcome, Sarah," I said, my voice neutral. "I'm going to be moving away," she said. "Starting over." "I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry for everything I did. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me someday." I hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. "I forgive you, Sarah," I said. "Just try to make better choices in the future, and leave me and Emma alone." "I will," she said. "Goodbye, Liam." "Goodbye, Sarah," I said. I hung up the phone, feeling a sense of closure. I had finally forgiven her, not because she deserved it, but because I needed to move on. Emma and I continued to build our life together. Our love grew stronger with each passing day. We opened the fourth gym, complete with Emma's PT wing. We helped countless people achieve their fitness goals and improve their lives. And one day, we received some unexpected news. Emma was pregnant. I was overjoyed. I had always wanted to be a father, and I couldn't imagine a better mother for my children than Emma. We welcomed our first child, a beautiful baby girl. We named her Hope. As I held Hope in my arms, looking at her perfect little face, I couldn't help but think about all the pain and heartache I had endured to get to this moment. All the betrayal, the anger, the uncertainty. But it had all been worth it, because it had led me to Emma, to Hope, to this incredible life. I finally understood what true happiness meant. It wasn't about success or money or power. It was about love, family, and forgiveness. It was about finding someone who saw you for who you truly were and loved you anyway. It was about building a life based on trust, respect, and honesty. And it was about learning from your mistakes and moving forward stronger and wiser than before. Years passed. Hope grew into a bright, energetic little girl. We had another child, a son named Finn. Our lives were full of joy, laughter, and the occasional chaos that comes with raising two young children. One day, I received a letter. It was postmarked from a small town in another state. The return address was unfamiliar. Curiosity piqued. I opened the letter. Inside, I found a handwritten note. Liam, I know it's been a long time. I hope this letter finds you and Emma well. I also heard that you have a family now. Congratulations. I'm writing to you because I wanted to let you know that I'm doing okay. I've rebuilt my life, found a new job, and am finally at peace. I also wanted to apologize, one last time, for all the pain I caused you. I know my actions were unforgivable, but I hope you can believe that I truly regret them. I don't expect you to respond. I just wanted to let you know that I'm thinking of you, and that I wish you all the best. Sincerely, Sarah the First read the letter twice. My heart filled with a mixture of emotions, sadness, forgiveness, and a faint flicker of pity. I showed the letter to Emma. She read it silently, then looked at me, her eyes filled with understanding. What do you want to do? She asked. I thought for a moment, then smiled. Nothing, I said. I don't need to do anything. I have everything I need right here. I took Emma's hand and squeezed it tight. Then, I went to find Hope and Finn to tell them a story about love, forgiveness, and the importance of choosing the right path. The story wasn't about Sarah. It was about us, about our journey, about the challenges we had overcome and the love we had found. And as I looked at my children's faces, I knew that I had finally found my happy ending. An ending that was richer, more meaningful, and more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. The gym continued to thrive, a testament to our hard work and dedication. But it was more than just a business. It was a community, a place where people could come to find strength, support, and a sense of belonging. And that, I realized, was the real legacy I wanted to leave behind. Not just a successful business, but a positive impact on the lives of others. The scars of the past would always be there, a reminder of the pain I had endured. But they were also a reminder of how far I had come and how much I had learned. I had survived betrayal, found true love, and built a life that was filled with purpose and meaning. And that, I knew, was a story worth telling. A story that would inspire others to never give up on their dreams, to always believe in the power of forgiveness, and to always choose love over hate. The rain outside had stopped. The sun was beginning to rise, painting the sky with vibrant colors. It was a new day, a new beginning, and I was ready for it. With Emma and my children by my side, I was ready for anything.